Okay, if I could have your attention, it's 11, a couple minutes after 11, we're gonna get started. We have a simple format. Our candidates just drew numbers for the order they're gonna go in. They'll each get 5 minutes to give an opening statement. Then we'll come back through and each one will have up to 20 minutes to answer questions. I'm gonna ask everybody to talk loud. We don't have microphones due to the power outage in here, but we do have a microphone on the camera. And so we are recording this to show later. So you need to kind of bring your voice up, me included. If you have multiple questions or you want to ask all the candidates the same question, you'll have to get up individually each time. The candidates can only answer the questions that they are asked. So, and my candidates all understand that too? So, that's pretty much it. Larry's first.
Sure. Thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm happy to have this opportunity to talk to you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Larry Munger. I'm a veteran. I served in the Army from 1970 to 1972. I'm an engineer. I graduated from Calvin College in 1986, and I was elected to the executive board of Local 730. I'm a family man. My wife and I will be married for 49 years come this November. We have 4 children, and they're all married, and they have blessed us with 16 grandchildren. I've been a member of Sandy Pines for 36 years. As a member, I have seen many changes and improvements during that time, and we've made many happy memories. Now that my wife and I are both retired, we make Sandy Pines our summer home. I'm running for the board to give back to the park I love. Sandy Pines is a member-owned and operated campground. We, the members, that's you and I, elect the board to set policies. All board members should be a voice to the members. I'll be your voice. I'll represent you by listening to your concerns. I'll use a common sense approach in the matters of the park. I'll fully support the choices made by the majority of the members. I'll promote transparency so that members will know the issues that face the park. Again, I thank you for your attendance, and I would be honored to serve you as your representative on the board.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Peppel, Site 491 in Phase 2. This morning, that's the dark side. I really appreciate you coming out here today and tolerating all the weather and especially what we have in here. My wife and I, when we first got married 44 years ago, we had this dream that someday in our life we were going to own a cottage on a lake in northern Michigan. That was it. Maybe some of you got that goal growing up also. So about 15 years ago, we started in earnest to look for that, and we searched and we searched and we searched. And we searched for probably 5 years. After 5 years, all I had was a lot more miles on my car and a lot more frustration because we couldn't find that ideal situation, that happy place, as it were. They were either too far away, or they were too expensive, or the waterfront wasn't any good, or they weren't furnished, or they were a money pit. And then a coworker of mine said, "Have you ever heard about Sandy Pines?" I said, "Wasn't that some little campground around here or something?" That was my perception. We'd lived 25 miles away for 25 years, and that was my perception of Sandy Pines. He said, "No, I think you'll find it a little bit different than that." He said, "It's only about a half hour south from here, from where we were. We were in Grand Rapids area." And I said, "Okay, fine, we'll go look at your little campground south of here. Okay, dreams to be north, but okay." So he brought us down here, he and his wife brought us down here on a Saturday of a July 4th weekend. OMG. So he first took us to our place, to his place, and so then we learned about park models and we learned about, having screened-in rooms. We thought, yeah, this will work. This is this is pretty nice. And then he started taking us around the park, and we saw all these different things, and there's people everywhere, and everybody's smiling and having a great time, and there's young people, old people, middle-aged, everybody. The lake was a little busy, yeah, okay. The beach, the ice cream, I mean, it was fantastic. So we thought, okay, yeah, this is working. So we talked to the sales office then the following week, and then we started looking at value. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. This is the value? We had been looking at all these cottages, and it was no comparison. And we talked about dues. I mean, that's all my dues are? That's half what a property tax would be on a northern Michigan property. A month later, we were in. So, flash forward 10 years, we were fortunate enough to be able to move from inland to the water, so we satisfied that part of our dream to be on the water. I really think we love it more now than we did then, because we've been able to enjoy all the amenities, and we've got to meet just some wonderful people. It's almost like an extended family here. It's just, I mean, we love it here, our kids love it here, our grandkids, our kid's dog loves coming down. And it's a wonderful place to be in. And as Larry said it perfectly, I really want to give back to the park that's given so much to me. I really want to do that. It would be an honor and privilege to serve on your board and to represent all of you. I feel strongly that I have the passion, the professionalism, the experience, which I'll get into later, the expertise, and the enthusiasm to help preserve the great things that we already have in this park, while be willing to listen to and consider other ideas for making things better. I thank you in advance for your support.
Good morning. I'm Chad, as most of you know. My better half is right over there, Kristen, and she's the love of my life. I've been here for a long time. I started coming here in the 70s and came back. I left in 85, came back in about 2000, and we spend every weekend, basically throughout the year, even in the wintertime, coming here. We both live in 2 different locations, and this is our meeting point. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve on the board over the last year. The people that I serve with, I have the utmost respect for. We all mesh together, and I think ultimately do the right thing for Sandy Pines. The biggest reason that I'm running again is, I guess, to support the other board members, but when Gene made his announcement that he was retiring, I felt very compelled that it was necessary that I remain on the board to, I think, give some security and support to the members, to the staff here, and to the new park president. It's imperative that whoever takes this job or gets this job has the support of all of us, because if they win, we win. And I guess that's my biggest motivation. I'm here as a voice for all of you. All of you see me out on my golf cart, and I love to stop and talk. And going forward, if you have anything, please wave me down. I'm glad to answer the questions. I'm glad to be your voice. And I look forward to 3 more years of this. This has, once again, been the honor of my lifetime, and I look forward to continuing. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Darlene DeWitt, and I respectfully ask for your consideration as I seek one of the open positions on the Sandy Pines Board of Directors. To give you a quick introduction about me personally, I live in Holland and have lived there most of my life. I am married to my husband Dale for 38 years. We do not have children. I work full-time for Consumers Credit Union. I have been with them for the last 12 and a half years, and my passion and drive for being involved with many wonderful life things are what important to me. Sandy Pines is very important to me because the first time I drove into this park some 10 years ago, I was awestruck by the park's beauty, its cleanliness, the campground feel, and most important, the modern resort-like feel that I'm comfortable with. I do not do camping very well, so I was very much impressed by the park's modern amenities. It's obvious Sandy Pines would not have this feel and look and be as popular as it is if it were not for a great park president, board of directors, and an executive team that is in place, both past and present. Most successful businesses have a strong leadership team in place and govern the business by the rules and bylaws that are in place. These rules and bylaws have a purpose which allow decisions to be made which will preserve the park's culture, community, and uniqueness for years to come. I do not have a long list of boards that I have been part of in the past, but I can tell you that all of my life, since the age of 14, I have worked. Once I graduated high school, I worked full-time and have not stopped. I have been working full-time for 42 years. Working and working well with others is what I know. I do not have a number of years of memberships that some of the Sandy Pine members have, but I do have a love and appreciation for this park just like you. By the time Wednesday rolls around, I feel a pulling in my heart, and I'm excited to get to Friday, swipe my card, get in through the gate, and start this great experience here at Sandy Pines. My vision for Sandy Pines is to be part of a team that is committed to help keep this community fun, safe, affordable, and to help preserve the many traditions that have gone on here for many years. In my opinion, the chapel is one of the many treasures of that this park possesses. It binds the fabric of this community together. I have heard your suggestions about adding more amenities to this park, especially as our membership continues to grow. I look forward to being part of the board of directors that will listen to your suggestions, both positive and negative. I will keep an open mind and I will not judge. My pledge to you, as a member of the board of directors, is to work in harmony with the board president and with other board members. I will participate in board meetings. I will participate in board planning sessions. And you will also see me volunteering at park events. I will do my very best to understand and abide by the rules and guidelines set forth by the member handbook and bylaws. Together, working as a fine-tuned machine, we will keep Sandy Pines a vibrant, exciting, fun, safe, affordable, and faith-based happy place for us and for generations to come. Thank you for your attention, and again, I'm Darlene DeWitt, running for Sandy Pines Board of Directors.
I drew the short straw, the last one on the list. My name is Dennis King, and my site is 1076. I've been a associate member for 20 years when my folks were out here on Selbold Cove, and my brothers and sister and our kids enjoyed the years that we were out here at that time. 10 years ago, my wife and I decided to buy into it on our own and became members. And so my wife Karen and I've been married for 24 years. We have 4 adult children and 6 grandchildren who just love being at Sandy Pines. So in the summertime, our weekends are pretty full. As I indicated in my bio, that I've been in public service for 45 years. 6 years military, 34 years law enforcement, and 11 years as a federal security officer. When I decided to run several years ago, I wanted to be a part of the Sandy Pines community and to try to make it a more secured and fun place for our families and our children and grandchildren. During the last 4 or 5 years, I've been on the Safety and Security Committee, which prompted me then to run for the board 3 years ago. And I am still on that committee. I've been on the Rules Committee, and I have been on a couple of meetings with long-range planning and rules, and that I've enjoyed it very much. And it's difficult to be on a lot of committees because you got to put a lot of your other efforts into the board situation and running the park. My background also includes an associate degree in business. And the last 3 years is another reason why I am again running for another term, is the fact of what has accomplished and been done. One of them is the building of the 2 security, or not the security, but the safety shelters for storm shelters in phase 3, which was a real exciting project to be on, based on the fact that the FEMA government organization supported 2/3 of that, where Sandy Pines went ahead and paid 25% and got 2 beautiful buildings. And I was thinking about that last night when that storm came in, just how many of the campers were able to utilize that. And I'm close to the campers, and I could hear a lot of activity at 2:30 in the morning going on with the kids and everything else. So I'm sure that they were able to feel secure in using those buildings. The next thing is the new building that is going to be built. And again, another FEMA grant that we were able to obtain. The shelters in phase 3, I was on a committee that was like an oversight committee that followed all the construction to make sure everything was done in proper time and manner. And if any issues came up, we were able to resolve them. Now I'm on this committee to build our new building around the North Shores, and I'd like to also continue on that. Therefore, another reason why I wanted to run for another term of office. I was also part of the support since the time I was on the Safety and Security Committee, and then now the board is the PA 330 support, and to implement a program that would help stabilize and strengthen the security officers of this community, to give everybody a safe place to be able to enjoy the recreation. That was also put into place last year and is in the developing stages as it develops. And I think that most of you probably have read that. It's either been in the footprints or it's been on the YouTube. So therefore, and as had Chad mentioned too, that yeah, it's been really neat to be with the board in the last year too, that have come together. We don't argue or fight with each other. We have level discussions and common sense, and we're able to come up with a good outcome and plan, which I would like to continue. And so I ask you that you vote for me and support me in the next 3 years. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will open it up to questions. Larry is first to answer any questions you may have for him.
Start with that. My name is Kelly Johnson. I'm at M10 in the condos. I currently serve on the board of directors. And so I want to talk to mainly the 3 newcomers. Because the question I'm going to eventually get to, I know how the incumbents work. So my question is mainly for me, to you. On Fridays, the board meetings, I think we presented a misconception or misperception on, you only lasted 20 minutes yesterday. What can you really accomplish? Mondays, we have our planning session, and they start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and sometimes they go on to 7 o'clock at night, because this board currently discusses everything that comes before us. And believe it or not, we're not always unanimous. Sometimes we share different views, and we talk everything out, and we come to a consensus. Not that we all will vote the same, but we feel free that we can vote nay if that's what it comes to. What's important to me is what happens after that vote. After Friday night, when we have voted, and let's just say Paul doesn't agree and he votes nay. I want to know how each of you are going to react following our vote if it's not something you truly believe was the right decision. Larry.
Well, I understand the issue. I've been to some of your work sessions. I've been to most of the board meetings. I know how things work. Most of the things you do, I agree with, and there may be one or two things in the future that I may not agree with, but I understand as a board member, we have to present a united front, and that we have to work for the betterment of Sandy Pines. I don't know of any way we can run the park efficiently without doing that. We have to be able to educate the members the direction we're going. We have to consult with the members and try and get their input of how we're going. That's how we know we're doing our job right, or at least you should know how you're doing your job right. So, in answer to your question, I would work with the decisions made. And if the decision requires a vote by the membership, I'll go with the choice that the membership make, whether they vote nay or yay. So that the park is a unity and we support all issues. Is that satisfactory?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll ask the same question to
Oh,
Paul.
wait.
I got
You'll wait till Paul's turn. Kelly's has trouble with the rules. Yes, ma'am.
I understand why.
This is a place to bring it up, but I would like to know how each of the people feel, and I'll address them later, about getting another pool, having two little pools and a kid pool for a place of 2,000 plus lots. Just seems like a real disservice, especially now that we call it a resort.
I'd like to ask you, are you talking about the proposed pool that was gonna go in phase 2, or are you talking about an indoor pool that was demolished here a few years ago?
Well, I'd like to see an indoor pool, but I just hear rumors going around every once in a while about there's gonna be another new pool, and I don't have the information on that either.
I'm with you with that. I would like to see another indoor pool. In our early years in the park, we lived here in Byron Center, we were close by, and that pool was opened up in the wintertime. And we used to come here in the wintertime and swim with the kids on the weekend. It was a great added bonus to the park. And I like that, and I'd like to see that again. There's times when we come here in early May and stay till the end of September that it's cold, and we can't swim in the pools because they're closed, and the lake is too cold. It'd be nice to have an indoor pool to swim in that's heated and comfortable. And so this morning, there was discussion of a group of members want to get together and put a proposal together to have another pool built. Now, I didn't hear all of that because I was tardy in attending this morning's face-to-face, but I think that'd be a good idea. And I would support another pool either being built. First choice would be an indoor pool, and then a secondary choice would be the one in phase 2 to help accommodate all the members that we have.
Right, I think that from what I had heard after the first vote, when they first said it passed and then they said no, it hadn't, that a lot of people just were uncomfortable or didn't like the way it was worded. They weren't sure exactly where it was gonna go, so they voted no. Where a lot of them really did want the pool, so that's just my input.
All right, thank you.
Everybody else knows everything they wanna know about Larry?
Some
Yeah,
things you probably
Janet?
know about.
We didn't forget it, it was 49 years, we had to go there a few times.
Okay, are you comfortable moving out, Larry?
I guess if they have no more questions, they have no more answers.
So you're.
So it's me, huh? So paraphrase your question again for me, Kelly, just so I understand what you're asking.
If at the end of the vote is taken by board on any subject, and the subject wasn't something that you nor really agreed with or you had some concerns about,
Okay.
what are your reactions going to be following the vote?
I would tend to agree that it would be nice via planning sessions and prior to prior to board meetings, to present solidarity, to present a unified front. Now, that being said, there still are going to be times when you are not going to agree with all 6 people. I feel comfortable that the board present and maybe new people coming on board that are professional enough to understand that if all the issues have been addressed, the opinions have been heard, and there's still some, I don't want to call it dissension, that's really not, I just don't agree exactly with what you say, that you, or I would still respect someone if Chad said no to something. I would respect him because I respect him as an individual and a professional and a peer on a board. And at the same time, he's listened to the same facts and figures that I have, and if that's the decision he's decided to make, I'm okay with that. We can agree to disagree professionally. I think that's okay. And you had a question, I'm sorry, you were talking about pools, because you wanted to talk to everybody about pools, right?
Yes.
Everybody wants to know about pools. Only when it's 95. Nobody asked this question in February. Well, okay, fair enough. Touche. Yeah, well, wouldn't it be perfect to have an indoor pool 12 months a year? I don't know that that's realistic. When we first moved in here, we were in phase 4 and we were very close to the indoor pool, and we didn't really realize what a valuable commodity that it was, but we were within walking distance, and the kids would use it, and the nieces and nephews would use it. And then when it went away, we kind of realized, yeah, that was personally I didn't use it, but I know a lot of people did, and it made it nicer for swimming lessons, and especially the spring when it was so awful, but still people want to get out and they want to recreate. They come here to have fun in the weekend, and gosh, when the weather was so terrible for all those weekends, it'd be nice to have that amenity to fall back on. As we all know, there's a tremendous cost. I mean, we'd all like to have real expensive homes and real expensive cars, but there's cost with everything. Now, I think it's important to find out specifically what the members do want. There have been surveys in the past where it's been asked, would you like this? Do you want a lap pool? Do you want a diving pool? Do you want, what do you envision? And if you have that information, then you can perhaps collectively as a small committee or even a citizens committee, a non-board committee, come up with some viable alternatives as to, well, what is the best thing? Because there's also going to be a cost involved just to determine what the actual end number is going to be. You aren't going to be able to just go to an architectural firm. They're going to go, oh yeah, it's $22 million, here you go. Without having that information, there's going to be a cost involved with that as well. Something that perhaps just the existing coffers would have to absorb that cost. Then you can go to the members, because you have to have something concrete. I agree with someone that said, maybe perhaps it was you that said when the one failed, perhaps part of the reason why it failed is we really didn't know what we were voting on. Okay, we were voting on an indoor pool, but what's it going to look like? How big is it going to be? What's it going to have? Is it going to have lap pool? What's it going to have? And I don't think there was enough concrete information for us to, like we have with our North Shore facility, which now we can all look at it. Seeing is believing. If I've got something I can look at, that I can make perhaps more an educated decision as to yes or no, and if it's going to cost X, am I willing to pay that extra X every month so everyone can enjoy it? I agree, overcrowding is an issue. I agree. And being in phase 2, it'd be nice to have a phase 2 pool, even an outdoor pool to perhaps alleviate some of that. Again, there's a cost involved with that. From what it was talked about, the face-to-face, it was significantly more than what we had projected. Would that have to work as an assessment as well? Again, there's costs. And I agree, it would sure be nice to have something to alleviate some of the overcrowding. I agree.
Thank you.
Come on, there's gotta be something else.
You were gonna talk about your experience. When you introduced yourself, you said you'd later talk about.
I was gonna say that for my closer, but I can do that now if you would. That's fine. The experience that I would bring to the board is I was on a board. I was on a school board in Jenison. I was vice president of that school board for 11 years. We had to maintain a $45 million a year budget. And that really helped me understand the value and learning of how to work with other board members. And then, listening to the public, we had 17,000 Georgetown Township residents, and then working together with a superintendent, i.e. a park president, in order to come up with proper things and proper ways to do things. And that was, I think that's a huge help to understand the process, to learn to listen, to not have knee-jerk reactions to things, to really take the time to learn about all options that are out there for different issues. And then once you have those things, then work with your other board members to come up with a viable alternative. So that was I think what would help make me a better candidate. I don't want to say a better candidate. Help me make a strong candidate for the board is having that background. The other part of experience per se was working in the automotive service industry for more than half my life, listening to people. It really helped me learn compassion and empathy and remaining calm in what can be some challenging situations. I'm sure we've all had some issues when we either had our car in for repair or a boat or whatever the case may be. So to be able to listen and to empathize and be able to, again, come up with viable solutions to try and keep everybody happy and everybody calm. And I really learned a lot doing that, how to remain calm in very, what could be very tense situations. So I hope that answered your question accurately. Oh, good, we got two.
Lady, you with your hand up. Yes, you were.
What do you see as the most important issue facing Sandy Pines today?
Wow, that's a really good question. The most important thing. I think that in general, although it encompasses more than one thing, but I think it's the preservation and the usage of our lake, because I believe that to be, if not our most valuable asset that we have, or amenity that we have, it certainly ranks up there. And there's a lot of things that encompass it in that when we talk about erosion, when we talk about boater safety and boater knowledge and understanding what to do in the boat, what not to do in the boat. Living on the waterfront, it's a little frightening sometimes when you see very busy weekends and some people really not quite understanding the rules, not Sandy Pines rules, but they're state of Michigan rules and boating rules, and the preservation. And do we spend a lot of time eradicating weeds to make it nicer to swim in? But then how does that affect the fishermen? Trying to protect this amenity, while it does involve a lot of number of things, that to me is number one, because I really think that's the number one amenity that we have here. And I'm sorry, you had a question also, ma'am?
Yeah, one of the things that I think that the board has not been successful in doing is being openly communicative with the members. A good example would be the license plates. They said, well, it was in every footprints and it was in everything, but when you go back and read those, it was very unspecific. It would be, we're working on ideas for making our park more safe. but nothing was ever brought up about what we were talking about specifically. And then suddenly the rule came out, so a lot of people were very upset about it. And I feel if it had been openly communicated, this is what we are discussing, it would not have come as a surprise, and people wouldn't have reacted as strongly as they did. So my question to you would be, please, if you were to become a member of the board, be open about what you are discussing, even if it doesn't end up being a rule or a decision. We know what you're discussing. And I think that that would make us a happy place instead of almost respectful of the board is what I hear a lot. And I try to be more open-minded and try to hear it from both sides. But if you don't have the specifics, you don't know how to respond when people come up with complaints.
I think that's a great point. I think there's a delicate balance between what is discussed at the board level that should go out, and at what level does that become, yeah, we better, talk with people about that. There's certain things that, yeah, I don't know how to say it any other way. There's certain things that could be discussed in a public forum. There are certain things that.
I understand.
The other thing was,
I worked on a nonprofit for many years, and I directed one, and I was on the board for many years, so I understand that there is that level of, okay, this we can't talk about and this we can.
Right.
But I do feel that there hasn't been enough openness for the things that can be discussed. And just keeping an open conversation between the members.
Oh, you're so right. The only thing you have to guard against that is misinformation and social media. If I tell you that, hey, we're working on that tunnel to phase 3, and all of a sudden, a week later, somebody says, yeah, when's the new tunnel going on? Yeah. So that's why I say you have to be careful where that.
That's where if you had open communication in an actual official sense, it would be, no decision has been made on this yet, we are having discussions about this issue.
That's more than
That's
fair.
clear.
Yeah, that's more than fair.
Instead of opening it up to forum, which, to be honest, I get most of my information off the forum, which 90% is incorrect.
You do have to wade through that, don't you?
Yes, you do. So I'd much rather get it from you guys.
Absolutely. And perhaps that's the way that it should be done, is if you have a question, to address it to the board.
I generally do, because I live here.
Oh, there you go. Rather than putting it on social media.
But
which
even going
creates
to
its
the
own-
board, I've gotten different answers, which is interesting.
It is interesting.
So one was which about the pool, because I did get an answer that a pool is being discussed. And so I'm sitting here listening about this going, okay, now we haven't heard it, and I still haven't heard it, so.
Right. Tricky. I agree. That's a slippery slope. I
Yeah.
agree. Hi. Oh, 2, 3. Okay.
I have a question about something that's coming up more and more on forum and other sites, that people are having a hard time financially getting banks to finance their loans. Is there someone on the board now or coming up that would have a financial background to walk through the possibility of the money that Sandy Pines has? Would that be able to finance? People make money at a decent interest rate and keep our properties financially sound, because we bought as kind of, we bought at
Of course.
basically high price and figured we'd still be able to maintain that. If people can't get financing for properties over 100,000, what are we gonna look at 5 years down the line,
Not a lot of us are walking around with 100 G's in our pocket, are we?
right?
That was discussed at the face-to-face, and apparently the park did used to, and still does in some cases, carry notes, but they're eroding from that process. There's just a handful out there. And Gene had mentioned that there's been discussions with we're constantly hunting for different financial institutions, maybe Consumers Credit Union. Anyway. I didn't want to put you on the spot, Darlene. But they are in discussions with a lot of different places, because we do want to find a home base. Do you understand the challenge to the financial institutions, why they are reluctant
I
to?
do, but that's
You do
why,
understand, okay.
if the property is basically Sandy Pines as a governing body could loan that money
Yeah,
due to that. Am I not correct?
I think it sounds good on paper, however, I think Sandy Pines is loath to get into that type of situation.
But there again, if it's a financial thing that people are wanting, and you have that money sitting there waiting to build a pool, waiting to,
Sure,
that money can make money.
you're right.
And more than what any bank is gonna give you on a holding fee.
I think that's a discussion that's an ongoing basis that perhaps has
That's
been
what I'm
looked at.
asking, I guess, is
I
if
think
there's any,
You've got to look at all
people
avenues.
going up for election that would have that kind of background to say, that might be my niche in the board, to have a person. And possibly there's some on already, I'm not that familiar. Just that question.
Fair enough.
And I'd like everybody to answer that one, so get ready.
Well, Lear didn't get that question.
He can answer it in his closing.
I don't care. Ma'am, you had one as well?
So over the years, when I come to these candidate meetings, one of my questions, and you did kind of mention it, is surveys. I think that our board in the past has often forgotten, many people are, I'm on other boards too, and when you're on a board that's not privately owned by its members, it's a whole different ballgame. And I think that we really lack in those member surveys. And I've had some of the candidates in the past say, absolutely not interested. That's terrible. These people here are paying those bills and they should have a voice. How do you feel about that? That's one question. And then I'm a little cautious on hearing the word unity on board votes, because I would like to hear that people are voting by their conscience, not because they got pressured in a planning meeting to go along with something. And I think that's happened here in the past as well. I think she's correct, you do have to work a little bit better at trying to be more open about things. Our bylaws are very, spell out what are closed sessions. Everything else should be open for discussion. And I agree, you could shut down some of the rumor mills much faster if there was more communication. How do you feel about those things?
Well, it's two questions, so the survey thing, I agree. I presented that as a possibility to learn more. How else do you know what the members are thinking unless you present something out there so you can collect data to see what people really are thinking. You don't know, so I would be more of a proponent of surveys to know when necessary. Because you don't want to bludgeon people either. You don't want to bludgeon them every week, because then they'll become, I don't care. So I think you have to be selective about it, but I think it's really important when you have critical issues to know what the people are really thinking. So I think that's a big thing. As far as presenting solidarity, the idea behind that is you want to air all your dirty laundry before you come out to the public. I may have an idea that's completely just way off board, and I might be reluctant to say that when there's 100 people present, when I don't have all the information or I don't have all the facts. That's part of the idea behind a planning meeting, is to gather all the facts. We all have different opinions, and then collectively come up with a viable solution that we all feel is best for the park. And so that's why I mean when I say solidarity. It doesn't mean we're all narrow-minded, we're all thinking the same thing. We walked into a board, yep, we agree on that, okay, next, yep, we agree on that. It shouldn't be that way. But I think all of those discussion things, if those meetings last 3 or 4 hours, that's when they get hashed out, rather than, that's just my opinion on how it should be. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but even being on a school board, we would get all that information ahead of time, and we would talk about it before the actual board meeting. So most of them were 7-0 or 9-0, or whatever the case may be. Because the other thing you want to be a little bit careful about, if you hear about those things and you hear about a company or something or whatever, and the vote is 4-3, you think, oh, and the board people not get along, or what's going on up there? So you kind of it's a delicate balance.
See, and I wouldn't think it would be from not getting along. I would think that they're voting their conscience, and I respect that. And I would think the opposite direction are going to respect the majority vote. And I certainly would.
And I don't think there's necessarily an arm-twisting thing. It's just like Kelly said in his original question. If I felt strongly about something, and even after a discussion, there were 6 that said yes and I said no, hopefully those others, would respect my decision because I listened to all the facts, listened to the opinions. I still don't necessarily agree with the majority, and I wouldn't be afraid to put that out there as a vote if I felt that strongly about it.
So on that survey issue, my school district just did one last year, you know, for the sinking funds. There's nothing wrong with asking for feedback on what you feel priorities. Our administration goes to all the department heads and asks them, what do you want for priorities in your budget this year?
Yep.
Why not coming to the members who own this park? Granted, it doesn't mean that's how it's gonna be handled in that order, but at least members would feel like they had a little bit of a voice.
Yeah.
That somebody actually is hearing or caring.
I think those are great questions. I think surveys just need to be done when necessary, not alone.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm real curious as far as you said your voice for the people. We have a majority of age groups and things here, but we have a minority of handicapped individuals. If you were procuring a building that was government, you have to follow certain criteria for that government building.
Okay.
If you found that it didn't meet a handicapped accessibility, and what would be in turn, how would you approach that so it then in turn did? If it came up to be a problem where it cost like $3,000 more to make it actually really handicap accessible, what would you do? What would be your input to, as a board member, to do that? How would you fight for those individuals to make sure that that happened?
I would imagine that if you have something like that where you have certain stipulations and requirements, those would be stipulated by law, and you have to follow them. So there wouldn't be a question of, well, we won't do that because nobody will check. But you can't do that. You have to be able to follow those rules and regs.
Okay, if there's a gray area and I'm not sure they follow the regulation, I mean, it is handicapped, but the person handicapped can't get in the room, in the door, because the door's too heavy, but yet in order to make it so there's something for them to push to open the door, cost of $3,000, are you going to advocate for those individuals to actually make that a handicapped federal building?
I would say certainly one possible. I'd have to look at all the facts before I could make, you know.
I just want to know how you stand as far as, are you going to be a voice for them too?
You know, you try to be a voice. That's when I state that I want to listen to everybody, because I can't make a decision whether it's via a survey or whether it's a face-to-face or whatever the case may be. You have to listen to people before you can make a decision. That's why I don't have an agenda. I don't have a knee-jerk reaction to things. I listen and I think, and then once I feel that I've received all the information, then I'm going to make an informed decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
I'd like to address your question about the pool or pools. I am all for a pool, indoor, outdoor, both. My concern is what it's going to cost, and Paul brought it up. And there was some rough estimates done this week. And for instance, the indoor pool, the rough estimate, just offhand, is about $4.5 million to build it. $4.5 million, because it needs restrooms, the building. So, but that's just the building of the pool. Now you have the maintenance of the pool, and that turns out to be about $160,000 a year, including pumps, electric, taxes, lifeguards. And so what that turns out to be is an assessment to everybody that's pretty permanent of about $262 a year. My concern is for the people that are in here that are on a fixed income. There is, and I don't know the exact number, but it's about 1/5 of the population of Sandy Pines are retired, and which means they're on a fixed income. And I'm concerned about them not having the ability to afford it. And so going forward, I think it's imperative that rather than looking at assessments to handle something like this, we talk about it a lot and become creative on how we can pay for it. Because this assessment is going to be never ending. That was $262 over 15 years. And 15 years turns out to be endless. And that doesn't include the maintenance of it either, so that's completely endless. So I'm for it, I love it, But I think we have to be creative on how we can come up with the money for it.
I just think that it should be brought out again, because I would certainly be willing to do that, even though I probably would not use it.
Oh, absolutely. And this is in the works. It's gonna take time. And the first thing that has to happen is an engineering study and find out exactly what it's going to cost. And these are rough estimates. It may be more than that. But, you know, this was a baseline to go off of.
How much do we subsidize the golf course for everybody?
I don't know those numbers right offhand.
120.
The 125 per year. But now do we tax?
I don't use that either.
Not yet. I don't either. But it's an amenity that Sandy Pines has that attracts people here, and it's an important asset. That's already in the budget. It's already happened. The pool hasn't happened yet. And as far as surveys, a survey, you're right on the money. And to find out how many people, percentage-wise, really want the pool. It was voted down before, but if we get some hard numbers and people know what they have to pay, that's where the survey would come in handy.
I agree.
On that topic, if we could afford it all these years, I certainly can't imagine, I know there's, prices go up, but we had that pool for how many years and afforded the maintenance. And so, here we're looking at, spending all this money on this overpass, $1 million it might come in at, and I bet safety has to come first too, but if we had indoor pools or even a pool here, it might reduce the number of traffic crossing that to phase 3, 75%, and you wouldn't need to spend $1 million on a bridge,
I agree to that to a certain extent. I guess the first part of that was there was maintenance on the indoor pool. That maintenance comes in at approximately $160,000 a year. That doesn't cover the $4.5 million when that building was built 40 years ago, 50 years ago. All right.
Way to go, Chad.
So that $160,000 is just a small piece of that. The $4.5 million or more, it could be, is a bigger part. The phase 3, bridge or tunnel. I live in phase 3. Okay, I've had sons going across that road. There was one time back in, I think, 2008 that there was sirens going off, ambulances and everything else were heading that way, and I was sick to my stomach. Because that's my kid. So, luckily it wasn't. And it wasn't an accident there. It was at the end of the road. So, I think the bridge or the tunnel is of the utmost importance before an accident happens. And we all want those extras, like the pools, but the necessity of the tunnel or the bridge, I think, is huge before something catastrophic happens.
On that same topic, we haven't been here long enough, and members long enough to know a bit of the history. So there are other assessments that they have like expiration dates, correct?
Correct.
Couldn't some of those assessments, I mean, they're gonna fall off, and then if you were to propose it in such a way that the assessment wouldn't fall off, but it would now go for.
You're exactly right. But when do those fall off? I don't have the answer to that.
I don't know.
And the desire for, whether it's an outdoor pool or an indoor pool, is immediate. People would like it now, and I understand that. So I don't know when these assessments fall off. I think you're correct that they could be applied towards something else without raising the money. Once again, it would be neat if we could come up with some creative ways how to pay for this.
Okay.
Jen?
Same question, but this is a little different because you're already a board member.
Hang on 1 second, Janet, I'll get you a microphone.
Are you sure I need it?
Well, we do now, because we switched back so that we get better recording.
Are you bringing it over or you?
Make it easy. Well, then the camera can't get there. Either that or Brian could walk around with the microphone like he did. It's not recorded, the visual side.
Okay.
Put it any way you want to.
Okay, work this way. All right. My question's a little bit different to you, only in the respects that you're already a board member. Okay. As a board member, when we built the FEMA building in Phase 3, what was your initial response, and how did you respond to when the board found out that it did not meet the requirements of the handicap? How did you respond, and why was it the doors not changed?
Okay, the answer to that question is, when I found out about it from people who are disabled, that went to the top of my list. It was very important to me because I have some people in Phase 3 that brought that to my attention. I looked at it the next day and talked to Ben Fifelsky about this, and Ben had relayed the message that at the time that these buildings were built, there were no such thing as automatic door openers or handicap accessible for a FEMA building. They did not exist. Now, since then, there's been some developments, and companies apparently didn't want to get involved in this. And at this point, to retrofit them, I understand that there's some on the market now. And the new building is going to have automatic door openers. But at the time, there were none available.
Okay, I guess I'll go with that. At least you made your attempts. My concern is that when I spoke to a FEMA representative and I spoke to a government representative, they said that that should have been created, and they gave an amount of what it would be. It was the contractor's error. So we actually should have gone back to the contractor and made him make the changes that were necessary to make our building handicap accessible. It's very difficult when you have a gentleman who's embarrassed because I'm helping him open that door, because the door's over there. If anybody's ever been there, please do go. They are heavy. I had a hard enough time opening that door for him, and he had a cane. He could not get in the bathroom. He wasn't even a wheelchair. He only had a cane. So I'm an advocate, and I'll tell you right now, I'm still working on it.
Jen, I support your advocacy, and I'm an advocate too. It was just a situation that they did not exist at the time that this building was built. There was no such thing as a door opener that was automatic that would hold the door open in a FEMA storm shelter. A tornado, for instance, if a tornado was coming and somehow something got thrown into that button and it opened up, it defeats the purpose of the storm shelter. So I'm all with you. And right now, with the new FEMA building, I'm on the building committee. And I'm deeply involved, and I have a construction background. And this is huge. And we're going to have an automatic door opener. It's my understanding that technology has changed. It's consistently changing. And since those buildings were built, we have better options now. Well, the retrofitting turns out to be it's my understanding at the time that these were built that they did not have that technology that was FEMA approved. And I'm telling you that I looked into this, and this was the response that I got. I support it. And the new building, once again, we're making sure that it's completely handicap accessible. We've talked about the entryway and how people are going to get in and where people are going to go and going up the stairs or the elevator. We've discussed as much as we can. Are we 100%, can we cover everything? We're trying to. I welcome that. Hi.
Can you touch on the financial problems about getting loans for the property?
Well, it's my understanding that there were some government regulations that the banks kind of steered away from giving loans for places within Sandy Pines. The sales department, I believe, especially Kathy, is looking to work with banks to make this happen. As far as Sandy Pines carrying the notes on these, it was Gene's comment that there was approximately 5 properties throughout Sandy Pines that they still carry a note on, and they used to do this. However, as he said, it comes down to chasing money. And there's a huge issue with dues and chasing money. People were used to paying dues by April when they came, and Max allowed that to happen. Gene doesn't allow that to happen because he doesn't want to chase the money. I understand that. And now you're talking about chasing not just dues of a couple $1,000s a year, but you're talking about chasing $100,000 to $150,000 per sale, which is huge.
Although if they renege on their loan, the Sandy Pines has the property.
You're right, but that's easier said than done. Well, I understand, but Sandy Pines, somebody has to chase after that money. And how much time do you give them to chase after that money? And then that becomes a legal issue that Sandy Pines is now paying somebody to go to court and paying lawyers to get that property back, because now it becomes much more than just a site. It's a trailer, it's a site, and it really, it's a can of worms. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, I tried to keep a list of all the questions, working with the board, the pool, safety, transparency and decisions, handicap door, financial problems, getting a loan to buy places here. And honestly, I don't know where to begin. So is one of these issues, well, I don't want to say it like that, they're all important. So where would you like me to start? Pardon me? The pool? Okay, so as you know, we've been at the park here we bought in June of 2017, and we've heard a lot of discussion about this pool that everybody wants. I think I was here a long, long time ago when that area over there had the pool. I don't even know if I probably was in that building because I remember there was a library and stuff, but that was many years ago. So when we first got here, we spent the majority of our time on the outside of our property, hauling dirt, sowing grass seed. So the pool was kind of the last thing on our minds. We've been here, this is our 3rd summer, and I've yet to step foot in the pool or into the water. I'm pretty much, not that I don't like them, but it's not my thing. And I think everybody has their own thing here, what they love to do. Like I've been sitting here watching people on the boats. So apparently some people love their boating. Some people here are on the beach. They love the beach. And I have seen the pools. Pools are really busy. And so I guess it's just what everybody wants. And another piece of that is I look at this beach here, and there's plenty more room for people here to park an umbrella and a chair and have some water if that's what they want. But I also get it too that we missed out on 3 months of spring weather. And believe me, I've had many discussions with God about April, May, and June. So I was not very happy about it. So that piece started I started to have a little bit more of a change of heart and now that I've been here a little bit longer, to start to kind of feel what everybody's feeling about this pool. And I ride past the pool over there by the recreation place. And it's like shoulder to shoulder people, so I get that, and I get that it's hot, and I get it that people want to be in a pool. So, but then also while I was out campaigning, I heard a lot of people say, hey, you know, this place, and they keep raising my rates, and, you know, now they want to build a pool, and they, you know, my dues is just going to keep going up. I'm on a fixed income. And so I wonder, how in the world are we going to build this pool at how many millions of dollars? And are people really going to be able to afford that? You know, my husband now that he's retired, that's his favorite line with me when I say, let's go to Rivertown. I'm on a fixed income, you know. So, he's too funny. So anyway, I'm a huge opponent of bringing it to the vote of the people. I'm all about let's vote on it. I love politics anyway. So I'd say if it's that big of a concern, if it's that big of a need, then let's bring it to the vote of the people at one of our next elections. I also look out at this group, and mind you, I was at the board meeting last night. There were so many empty seats. I don't think, the meeting was 20 minutes because nobody came up to the microphone to speak. And I'm like, you know what, if people have an issue or a problem, then you need to be here and making it known before the people, instead of maybe being back at your campground and just complaining about it. You know, I'm a huge advocate of, hey, if you don't like something, change it, you know. And so that would be my answer regarding the pool. If we want a pool here, then I say let's bring it to the vote of the people. Let's have a nice drawing like we do for this other building. Let's have a cost, what it's going to cost us annually, how it's going to affect our dues. And then let's ask the people what they want. Because not everybody here at this happy place wants the same thing. So that would be my answer to that. Yes. Finances. Well, you know, I saw some stuff on the Sandy Pines Community Facebook page, and this person kind of, I don't know who they were, kind of got everybody in this panic about, oh, you know, banks aren't lending. I guess I really didn't know that banks aren't lending. I would think for people, and I'm going to call it like the mature audience, so maybe like 50 and better. I would think by that time, if you wanted to get a place out here at Sandy Pines, number one, you should either have equity in your home that you can use, or you should have some type of a 401k, or you should have some type of a savings set aside that you can get a place here, okay? Now, when I think about young families, let's just say in their 20s and 30s, that have 4 kids, a brand new house, 2 brand new cars, I'm like, how in the world can they even afford to buy a $60,000 or $70,000 place here? I have no idea. So, you know, I don't know how that happens. I don't know how people get brand new places like that, but I would just say, in mine and my husband's case, we looked here for 10 years, and we went back and forth. Do we buy here? My husband's from the Upper Peninsula. Do we buy something up in the UP? We always came back to Sandy Pines. And we made arrangements, because of where we're at in our life, that we could afford to buy a place here. So I guess people just have to be creative. And if you want something bad enough, you're gonna go that extra mile to get it. Okay, so that marks 2 off the list.
Well, you have credit union experience, so now that you know this problem, is this something that you would take to
When we first talked about buying a place out here, I did go to our lending department, and the first question I got was, "What's that? What's Sandy Pines?" So I told them, that it's this resort, this seasonal wilderness trail and park models and that type of thing. And I don't want to say that they didn't want to lend the money, but I think it was just easier because I could just see the writing on the walls, that it was just easier just to make other arrangements. Why financial institutions don't lend, I have no idea. I had read something in a Facebook post. This had something to do with the state of Michigan. Does anybody know if that's a fact or not, that legislation's changed in Lansing?
We were just told at a finance meeting from Keith that it was a federal regulation change.
Oh, okay.
All the details,
Mm-hmm.
but that was the feedback they were hearing from the banking institutions. But it absolutely affects all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily about whether individually we have the financial means to buy in here. It's going to affect all our resale values if people don't take an interest to help find ways to find a solution.
Right. And you know what? Somebody had asked what the biggest, I don't know if it was the biggest safety concern or the biggest concern about here. And I was going to say the crossing over into phase 3. Oh my God, what a nightmare that is. And I don't go over to phase 3 very often, but when I do, I'm like, I sure hope I make it across the street, because that's dangerous. And can you imagine just a cart full of younger people with a boombox going, or maybe somebody with a hearing disability and getting smacked by a car? That is a lawsuit, as far as I'm concerned. That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. And I pray that nobody ever gets hurt there. That's horrible. My other biggest concern is I'm seeing trailers going up for sale all the time, and I'm like, what is this? You guys just bought last year. So does it have something to do with that? Are people bailing? And I don't know. That's kind of a scary thing. Yeah. Because I think I have 3 or 4 right on our cul-de-sac. Beautiful trailer just went up for sale, and I'm like, why? I guess I could stop and ask them, but, But, okay, shall I move on to the next question? Or, pardon me? Or does someone else have another question? I love your question. I love Kelly's question about working with the board. That's pretty much, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but so working with the board, are you going to go home and throw a fit, slam doors and drawers because you didn't get your way? I guess in some meetings that happens. I just feel like at this point in time of my life, I would not be where I am today, both career-wise, and believe me, I love to work. I put that in my bio. I love to work. I love to be busy. I don't ever see myself quitting anytime too soon. My long-term goal is I would like to entertain going into politics. So that's I love politics. So I'm kind of looking at that post-retirement. And I just feel like I wouldn't be where I am today if I was that person that was continually argumentative, combative, it's got to be my way or no way. I wouldn't be where I am today with that kind of an attitude. And I think it's so important as a group to have the respect to agree to disagree, like Paul said. My husband and I, we practice this daily, agree to disagree, and we're hanging in there 38 years. I love it. And I watch the board. I've been to a couple of board meetings, and everybody just seems to have such a great respect for each other, and I love that. And I don't really even know that I would want to be part of a board that I'm going to have to go home and have a cocktail because all we did was fight and argue and nobody gets along, you know. So I wouldn't want to be part of a board like that. So I think it's super important that, number one, we respect, we listen, we research, and we come to an agreement and a decision that's going to be what's best for this park. So that's how I would answer that. Yes, sir. Yes, I do. Yes, I am. I have been with my company 12 and a half years. I have a tremendous amount of PTO stored up that I have a lot of flex time that I can use, so that is not a problem. In fact, I'm one of those people, I love my job so much that I usually have to take the last of my PTO during the last 2 weeks of the year. So having time off and attending meetings, doing things during work time, providing that it's, you know, it's not like, you know, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a whole other story. Then yes, I would be here. I look forward to that. Any other questions? Well, thank you, everybody.
It's lunchtime. We'll be back next week, same time. Yeah, with your credit card. Any questions? The pool. Well, I can tell you, there's a lot of water and it's wet. As far as the pool goes, I'm for both Phase 2 and an enclosed pool. The thing that concerns me is in the past, when things have been developed and there's been surveys and voting. I think some of you remember how close that vote came with the water park. And a lot of members felt that was jammed down their throat. I wasn't in the park. I wasn't a member at that time. But this is what I hear. This is one of the things that concerns me is, and it was mentioned before, about those who are retired on a limited income. Just yesterday, and I got to be careful about saying elderly lady, because she's pretty close to my age, said, I don't want any indoor pool. I want nothing to do with it. I'm not going to use it, and I'm not going to pay for it. And that's where the problem is. With the golf course, how many don't use the golf course, but they got to pay for it? That's one of my pet peeves, is forcing people to pay something that they can't use and won't use. But it's part of the amenities. It's part of the attraction for people to come into the park. I golf, but I haven't done it for the last couple of years, and here it's free because it's part of the membership. But I've just been busy with other things. Oh, is it $3 now? Well, see, I haven't been there. And I'm using my own cart. But that's pretty cheap to, golf is $3. But when you talk about surveys and find out what people's ideas are, I mean, that's what you got to come out with first, to see how many people, how many members. If you got a couple dozen that say, hey, I want this indoor pool, and I don't care what it costs, the thing is, it's going to cost somebody something, somewhere. And that the surveys, I don't know the exact percentage that answered the last survey they had in 2016, but if you look at the votes that come in every year, you got 2,200 members, and you're only getting 900 and some votes. Where's the other 11 or 1,200 people, or 1,400? Why aren't they voicing their opinions? And then when somebody complains about, oh man, here they did it again to us, it's, did you vote the last time? Or were you too busy and didn't bother with it? So if you can't be here to vote physically, get an absentee. And as soon as I became of age, with our national voting, I got absentee. So then what do? I vote to be a volunteer at a precinct. So anyway, that's my view on it as far as surveys and the voting. If we can get 100%, even 90% of our members to vote on something, then we know we got some traction in something and that they are in favor for it. But I can tell you, who wants to pay $262 more? Especially if you're retired on limited income. Does that answer your question? What's that? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. But you say that's by the month, that our dues come in October. And so.
I actually pay our dues on a monthly basis ahead.
Yep.
So I'm never behind. I just start at the beginning of the year. I throw $200 a month into the fund. They charge me.
Yeah, because they started that in the last couple of years that they were able to do that for us. Yeah.
If you increased my dues by $20, I'd go, no problem. So I think it's a way it's presented also. Again, we're talking about how things are communicated. And on the last vote, that proposal was written so poorly that I think there were a lot of no's on that just because of the wording was so confusing. Nobody knew if they were really voting for it or against it.
Yep, that's what I've heard. Yep. Mrs. Munger.
You said you're a member of the Oversight Committee on the new building?
Oh, yes.
The FEMA building. Okay, and I'm sure we all are individuals, we all make mistakes and we oversee what's happening and something doesn't happen. I'm just hoping that you're going to bring this issue to the Oversight Committee of Handicap Accessibility and make sure that the next building we build has that openings appropriate for handicapped individuals. How many handicapped people have you spoken to in relationship to building the building?
Well, I can't give you a number, but I can tell you that one that started to be developed with the new building, and that was the first question at our meetings right off the bat. Hey, we got to look and make sure we've got the handicap situation taken care of. After this, the buildings were built in phase 3, then we found out it was an oversight. As far as the meetings I went to, nothing was ever brought up about it, and it wasn't in the plans. The architecture's never put it in.
Right, I remember, because that's what Gene
But they
said.
are working on it, and I'm hoping that they do get something resolved soon.
So I
Yep.
just want to see that that's actually a point that's being brought up
Yep.
as a board member for the next building that we're building, because I didn't
Yep.
notice it on there, so, okay, thanks.
Mhm. Yes.
Since you were on the committee to build the last building, we keep talking about $4.5 million for an indoor pool. Somewhere we got the money to put, how much money did we put towards those buildings that we built in phase 3?
1.1 million.
How much money are we putting in the building that's going to be built on the North Shore?
See, that's a $4.5 million project. I think close to 2, just under 2. Less than 2 million.
So close to 2, we put one over there, so somewhere we came up with close to $3 million without an assessment. So,
Well, that was part of that capital reserve that we voted on a couple of years ago, that we could start building up our reserve and cash fund. And if you were,
reserves I didn't think was to build anything new.
and No, this is a replacement building. Replacement, yep.
Part of that was.
Part of the money, yes. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm just wondering why the 4.5 million number keeps coming up, but we don't talk about any of the money that Sandy Pines, we could put towards that 4.5 million. Like we put $1 million towards the bathrooms and 3, and we're putting $2 million towards the North Shore.
Well, that's because we had the cash reserve that was available, and that's why there was no assessments. Then you would have had to vote on it. But you got to remember, this is a grant, and it's a FEMA grant. And when you get a grant, you just can't tell the government, it's okay, you're going to give us this. Now, hold on a second, because we're going to have a vote in 3 months, and we'll get back to you. And so when you put in a grant, it's pretty well that you have got the intention and you want to build something. And you want to see if the government will help build that, and they are. I mean, you're looking at 25 cents on the dollar that Sandy Pines has to pay as an example. So, you got a question?
Just a comment. Part of the whole planning session the board's working on now will have different options available to the members. Part of the whole pool committee structure that will be going on will give the members, when we're done, options of what we can do, and that will go back to the members to decide. So for example, you talked about we put money aside to do that. That's still an option for us to do here. We're going to give you an option that says, okay, for the next 4 years, if we do it this way, this is what it's going to cost the general membership. Members have been speaking and they want that pool now. Well, if you want it now and don't want to wait a certain period of time, this is what it's going to cost you. So we want to give you all the variables to the members of how we can do it and then listen to the majority. But there are options and those will be available to you.
Does that help answer it? Any other questions? Are we still on?
Oh, gee, don't get up and leave. I'm just going to talk again. Closing remarks. Thank you. No? I got to get up closer, I guess. I'm not used to this. Closing remarks. I look upon you as people like myself. I see myself in you, that you want representation on your board, and you want someone who's going to be responsible and hear what you say. One of my issues that I talked about was transparency. I want you to understand what the issues in the park was and what the board is doing about it. On the question of what's the most important issue of the park, I would have to agree that the lake is. I live in Phase 6 and I see beach erosion, and I'm going to have to do something about it. I'm going to have to spend my money to stop that beach from erosion. You look at the point, the chapel, and there's so much sand has come off that point. We've lost about 10 foot since I've been over there in Phase 6. And that sand is washing around in that cove between Phase 6 and the chapel. And there's now a large sandbar. So we have a problem and we need to address it. And we have to address the lake quality. The weeds are coming over there and the chemicals are not helping. Loans. I'm not a financial person, so I can't be much help. I would suggest that surveys would be put in place, and that maybe we could get better input from the members to know what the board should do to address their issues. Unity on the board. Well, I may cast a no vote sometime if I was on the board, and I do it with my clean conscience, but once the vote is taken, even if I had voted no, I would say I'd have to support the rest of the board in carrying out to see that the plan that the whole board voted on was carried out. Handicap accessibility in the FEMA building. I would think that we should go back and retrofit those doors so that handicapped people can get in and out of there. I've been to that building and those doors are hard to open. So I can imagine some elderly person, not quite me yet, but with a cane or something, that they would have a hard time getting in. I've talked about the pool. And since I'm retired and I live here, I'm available for all the meetings at all the times. But thank you all for being here, and may God bless you for coming here.
Please don't ask my wife to confirm this, but I consider myself a very good listener. I really take pride in that, to listen to people's opinions, whether it's my neighbor, whether it's my kids, whether it's my grandkids, my peers, my coworkers, perhaps in the future fellow board members. It's the only way that I can know what's out there, what information, what issues, what are people's hot buttons, and what are possible solutions. And by listening to all of that and gathering that information, I feel then I can make an informed decision, and I can assure you that my decisions will be based on what is best for our park. I think that's the most important thing that a board member can do to represent you as people, because it's impossible for you as individuals to be able to vote on every single issue that comes in front of the board. So it's important that you have a representative that you know is someone that's going to represent you and perhaps not agree with everything you have to say. I think that that's foolish to even assume that that's a possibility, but at least you know that you have someone that's willing to listen to you. I'm at Site 491 in Phase 2. My refrigerator's always full and my Keurig is always on. I'm here virtually full-time. I do work a couple of days during the week, but I'm here virtually full-time. I look forward in the next 30 days to getting to know, I'd love to get to know all of you so much better than I do already. But please don't hesitate if you see me at the tennis courts or the pickleball courts, or, well, you won't see me at the swimming pool because I can't get in there. But anywhere that you might see me, I encourage you to stop and say hi. I love to listen. And again, I thank you in advance for your support come August 17th.
Thanks for coming. Once again, I feel honored and humbled by the support that I've gotten over the last year, and the support that I've gotten over the past couple days as I've gotten around the park and handing out signs and talking to people. I consider myself very transparent. We are on the golf carts, we're walking the dogs daily, and I will always stop and talk to people. If you have a question, please come to me, and I'll give you an honest answer, and I'll go back to the board, and we'll discuss it. If you're worried about transparency with the board, please attend one of our work sessions because they are open to the public. That's the place that we all make a decision and talk about it and hash things out. And unless it's a closed session, anybody is welcome to it. With that being said, I want to thank my fellow board members because it's been an honor to work with you guys, just truly. I believe the most important thing that Sandy Pines faces right now is the decision that these people are going to make on the next park president. That is the absolute most important thing to me, because that park president is going to either succeed or not succeed. And I think it's our job to help make that person succeed and to support them. And that's our job as a board. So I appreciate everybody. I appreciate your support. And hope that you grant me another 3 years to help Sandy Pines grow. Thank you.
Well, I've truly enjoyed being here today, and I want to thank everybody for coming out today, because this tells me that you really care. You really care about the future of this park, and I think it's so important for people to get involved and don't sit in your trailer and grumble and complain about everything. Get out and be a part and make it happen. Help be the change that's going to make this place a place that people are going to want to be here for generations and generations to come. I found it quite interesting. Everybody kept talking about a survey. I don't know if we ever took, did we ever take a survey? I don't ever remember taking a survey here. But I like to think that I'm pretty techie and I love technology. I don't always understand it. But I would say if Sandy Pines can text us, 5 times in the middle of the night last night that we have a storm coming, then I would think that we need to start using some modern stuff, like start using a monkey survey that can either go to your text or go to your email, for those of you that don't text. And I know there's my mother, oh my God, she's the hardest person in the world to get a hold of it at 85 years old. And so I say, let's get on board with the times here. Let's start utilizing our text, our emails to start communicating with people, because I'll tell you, we live in a world today where if it's here, people are all about this. But if you're gonna want people to come in here and fill out a survey, you may as well forget it. That's not happening, okay? I am disappointed that there's like just a handful of people here. Where is everybody? My coworker Grace, bless her heart, do you know how many times she had to listen to my speech this week? Over and over and over again, Grace had to listen to my speech. And I was just gung-ho to give my speech to 200 plus people. So I'm really disappointed that more people didn't show up. And I just want to, again, I say, hey, if you don't like what's going on here, if you're going to sit in your trailer and grumble, don't grumble, come out and be a part, make it happen. Be the change, okay? And you know what, as far as the pool's concerned, as I said earlier, not everybody here wants the same thing. Like I said, I'm looking at all of these boats, and do you know how many Facebook posts I have heard about people complaining, I don't have a boat stake. I have to wait 10 years. It'd be quicker for me to buy a place with a boat stake. And I wonder how many people who want a boat stake would rather have a boat stake than have a pool. That would be one heck of an interesting survey to take. So not everybody does the same thing. People come here to golf. I hear about the golf course all the time. I have clubs, and they are nicely tucked away in my basement for the last, 6 years? So not everybody wants the same thing. So I would just say we need to be respectful of that. And if it gets to be an issue, like I said, I'm all about let's bring it to the vote of the people. So I thank you. I'm at lot 567, phase 2. We're where the split rail fence is, and if you don't know where the split rail fence is, I'm sure everybody knows where Bucky, the singing buck, is in phase 2. We live kitty corner from Bucky, so I would love to talk to you more, to get to know me a little bit more, because I am so new to the park, and any questions that I can answer, I would love to answer those for you. So thank you, everybody, for coming out today.
I too want to thank everybody for being here. And I'll try to make it short. They said I had, 5 minutes? So I can't say too much then. One of the gentlemen asked a question about, will you be able to make all the meetings? I was thinking about that, and I said, I don't recall any meeting I had not been able to attend. That's also the planning meeting and also the board meeting. Plus, in the committee I was on, that I attended each one of those meetings each month. As far as the building committee, I tried to make all of them. For the phase 3, we had to meet every other week. I live in Kalamazoo. Park is closed, so I have to make that trip. So I made it every other week, and I can tell you that none of the board members or anybody, any committees get any kind of compensation. This is all free time that we give to this park, and my goal is to keep it as a wonderful, happy place and the greatest park in the world. And so that's why I ask that you vote for me so I can continue on this road to keep this park going. Our budget is up there, is being balanced, and our finances are very strong and solid. And I also am for those of the that have physically challenged, and also those who are seniors and are retired, and trying to help to make sure that their money is well spent, and that they can also enjoy the park with the rest of us. So I thank you for coming. I'll leave that up to Jim, do that finishing mark. So thank you for your support and your consideration.
Well, that concludes our Meet the Candidates, but before everybody rushes off, there's two things I want to say. One, I'm thankful that those of you that did show up, showed up. Those of you that might watch this at home, I wish you'd been in the room maybe to ask some questions. And I will say that sitting on the board and all the face-to-face meetings, I see the same people. I don't think there's a face in here I don't recognize from those meetings, so the same people come to the meetings. And if people do have issues they want to bring to the board, we have a comment section at the end of every board meeting. You can come up to the microphone, you can tell us your concern. We don't take questions because it's not fair to have somebody, if you take one question that there's an easy answer, somebody comes up and asks you a complicated question, you don't have the information in front of you, you can't do anything with it. But those questions are all taken down and they are addressed in our next work session. And it's not like we let you come up and talk and do nothing. So, and if you have a concern on something else, you can always take it to the president's office, or which he relays to the board of directors, or you can email the board of directors with your concern. So I don't want anybody to feel like they don't have a voice. You have a voice, you just got to let us hear it. So with that, I thank you all for coming. I don't know if your place is cooler or warmer than this. I don't know if they're going to leave it open or not. I think they are as a cooling center today, but I'm not sure. So thank you all.